What's going on, YouTube? Thanks for tuning back into another video. Right behind me, as the last couple videos have been focused on, we have the all-wheel drive Honda CRX B-Series on turbo. And there was one last piece of the puzzle that we needed to add, which is this boost gauge. Although the ECU reads the boost through the map sensor and then transmits it to the tune and everything, and you have all the calibrations responding through the ECU, it's still nice to know exactly how much boost you're running. And if you do boost by gear, which we're actually not, it's cool to see if it's actually reacting correctly. Now, we actually picked this up for about $28, I think, at Advanced Auto Parts here in Palm Coast, Florida. Huge thank you to them for always taking care of us. We're about to put this on, and it does come with some instructions on the back, but like most instructions out of the box, it really is dry, and I personally don't like it. We're gonna get this unboxed right now, show you exactly what's in it, and show you guys how you can do this at home while we give you guys the ride along and show you how we put it on this car. Right out the box, we see that it comes with a few different components. First of all, this is basically what's going to be used as the vacuum/boost line itself, as well as the fittings necessary to get that all into working shape. And a lot of people, instead of running this, they'll just run an NPT fitting to whatever part of boost source they have on the engine or manifold, and they'll just run a normal vacuum line. Now, we could opt out for this, but since it's so easy to just run the fittings that it comes with, we're just gonna run that kit right there. Same as the oil pressure that we have on the car, really simple to route it exactly to where we need it. There's a couple different spots that you can get boost/vacuum reference from. Most people, 9 times out of 10, will get it from a manifold source. For example, on the back right there, we have basically on the plenum of the manifold, a whole bunch of spots with NPT fittings. Female obviously on this side, so you could put a bung onto it or a fitting, that way you can feed it to the boost gauge. And a lot of people who don't have something like that will 9 times out of 10 just put a T onto the fuel pressure regulator and then run that directly inside of the cabin. Now, there are a few different ways that you can install it. You can do it just mechanical, as this is a mechanical gauge, and not run any wiring, or you can run some wiring too and have a little backlit light, which is going to be super easy to put on, especially since we already have some accessory power to our other gauges, which are inside the car right now. We have a fuel level gauge as well as an AEM wideband gauge, both of which have accessory power to them. So we're just going to tap into that. But if you are doing this at home and you don't have an accessory power area already pre-designated, then you can look onto your vehicle's make and model and then Google search that with accessory power or how to tap into 12 volt, and it'll tell you specifically for your make and model. Red is always power, black being ground, and it'll show you step by step for your specific make and model how to get this power. That being said, it's very straightforward. The first thing we're going to do is actually get these fittings unboxed and show you exactly how to attach it to the plastic line that's supplied. And that's going to go onto the spot that we told you on the back of the manifold, which is a 1/8 NPT. Here's all the fittings from what is actually supplied with the kit. Right here you have the 1/8 NPT. This is an adapter if you have to run it to a 1/4 inch NPT. That would just go right there. But since we have it pre-tapped for a 1/8, we're not going to be using that adapter. This is going to get threaded in, and then the rest of the components will actually be used afterwards. But you can thread this into the pre-designated spot, like we said, onto the manifold in this case, using either silicone or PVC. What is it? What's it called? Plumber's tape?
PVC, no?
PVC, something like that. Basically, you know, thread tape. So in our case, we're just going to use some silicone because that's actually what I have right out here. And if you do decide to do it this way, just make sure that you have enough time for this to fully dry. That way it doesn't get blown out by the boost or anything like that. All right, sorry for the weird contraption I have here of a light, but you can see exactly on the back of the manifold, that's a 1/8 NPT spot right there. And we have some silicone on here. Not a crazy amount, but just enough to cover the threads all around. And now I'm gonna start by threading this in by finger. You don't want to impact it on or anything. And obviously we can't fit an impact back there, but this goes on. There we go. That's on there finger tight right now, and I'm just gonna go ahead and finish it off with a wrench. So for this next portion, while that is already threaded onto the manifold, we're gonna start with the actual tubing that it provides. Like I mentioned, we're gonna be using the rest of this. Basically, you have right here what will be a slip over nut. This is going right over here, slips right there. And then you're gonna have this little tiny piece, which I don't know the name. It's gonna slip over as well. You wanna give it some room right there. I like to give it like, I don't know if it's correct, but I give it about 1/8 of an inch. And then this comes back down, and it's gonna thread onto the male part of the fitting on the manifold. And for demonstration purposes, this is the same exact type of fitting on the back of the boost gauge. Basically goes like this, and you thread it on. And you're basically self-assembling a AN fitting, if you're more familiar with those. I believe this is technically called a compression fitting, if I'm not mistaken. You guys can correct me down in the comment section below. You know I'm not too familiar with all the lingo or whatever, but I think that's what it's called. And basically that's what we're gonna do onto the back of the manifold right now. Very simple, very easy. You don't need any sealant right here or nothing. And the rest of this line, we're going to route it inside the car without any kinks to an area where we will be able to attach the boost gauge. And this is plenty of line, so you have a couple feet to play with. Don't have to really worry about running out of line right there. And then once we're in the car, we can actually show you how we attach it. Inside of the car, we're actually figuring out exactly where we want to mount the gauge. We already started drilling right here. This is a 2 1/8 inch hole saw, which is a little bit bigger than what you need for these typical 2-inch gauges, but we like having the extra play, and it's not big enough for the front to slip off, and you can still run the piece that holds it onto the back. So it actually works out pretty nice. This is just a little carbon fiber panel that I cut out of an old hood that I had that didn't work, or that I didn't need. So I know it's gonna get a whole bunch of dust everywhere, but we'll blow it out later and vacuum it. So I picked this center portion. We got the fuel, air fuel, and now I'll have boost right there. And eventually we're gonna hook up the power and ground to make the light work. But for the time being, we're just gonna send it like this, send it papi, and just make it work mechanical for now. If you know me personally, you know I'm not one that cares much about aesthetics versus functionality and stuff. I'm gonna vacuum this out later. I don't really care too much. And it's late at night. Fits good right there. Like I said, it doesn't go past the face, but it fits nice and comfortably. This, I have it loosely mounted right now. I didn't put the screws back into the center console. I just wanted to find exactly the body line to try to follow. And now I can actually take this front face off. And if you'll give me 1 second, I'll show you exactly how we mount it onto the carbon fiber. Basically this ear that comes on the back of the gauge, and the back of the gauge actually has 2 posts on it, 2 studs with the supplied hardware. This is an 8mm nut, very simple. We have a whole bunch of wrenches or sockets that you can use with this. Essentially, once you have it on the position you like, you put this with the prongs facing the backing of the gauge. Basically what it does, it sandwiches the gauge against the back of the panel that you're working on, and it holds it into place. I dropped one of the nuts just now, so I'm gonna have to find that before I can actually fully secure it. But I'm gonna take it off at the moment. That way we can run the line for it nice and comfortably, and we'll put this on towards the end. All right, so on the engine side, we have already ran through the firewall where we're gonna be feeding the line into the cabin. Like I said, we have the nut over top with this fitting on the front of it. This is gonna be very easy to put in, just like that, as we mentioned. Start threading this on. And we're gonna be holding the male fitting that's on the manifold while tightening the top one. So the male fitting, this is an 11mm. And the one that we just put on is a 10mm. And it doesn't have to be crazy tight, but you'll kind of like feel that it's still a little too loose for your liking. What I like to do, if you focus on my finger up here, I put like one finger and then just kind of nudge it forward a little bit, and that should be about good. And if you give it a little tug on the back, you're not gonna be able to take that tubing out. Obviously don't rip it out with the force of 17 gorillas, but you know, just give it a nice little ugga, not an ugga dugga, but just an ugga, make sure it's still good. And that's pretty much it for the engine side. You're gonna do the exact same thing on the inside, and then using those little legs, we can hold it on. So we're gonna go inside, pull the extra of the actual tubing inside of the cabin. That way we don't have to do any nasty cutting. We only have an excess about 1/2 foot, so it's not a lot. And we'll get that put up right now and show you how it looks afterwards. Just getting this fitting on as well. Now for the back of the gauge, it's a 14mm wrench that you're gonna be using. Same principle though. Hold it one side. Make sure it's already through the panel that you're bringing it through. Because if the hole's only big enough for the back of the gauge to go on, then if you made it go on the outside of this, you're not going to be able to get it on. Just be conscious of how you're doing this. A little more. That's about good. Perfect. Sometimes if you don't hold the back of this, it'll read off of 0. It'll be like -1 or 2 psi when it's actually at 0, because this is just attached to the needle and the face will move off of it. So just a quick little tip for you. Try to keep it as straight as possible. All right, we're gonna put this back piece on. And if you notice on my other gauge that I have over here, I actually don't have the back piece. I just have some electrical tape. So if you don't have this, you know, some electrical tape and do a press fit onto it is perfect. Then other gauges have like a full collar that you just hand tight. Just different styles. Not one is better. One isn't better than the other, but it's really up to the company you get it from. The coil is just gonna freely hang in the back, and as I put it back, it's gonna kind of spring back into its own location. Or you can be really neat and zip tie it onto the spot that you want it. But we send it, so we're not too worried about that. If you guys are just watching the video for the boost install and you don't know about this car, it's an all-wheel drive converted Honda CRX, turbocharged. We're gonna hit the subscribe and notification bell so you guys can actually check that out in the next couple videos. Back to the boost install, the boost gauge, excuse me. I haven't vacuumed it yet, but that's how she is. Here's the boost gauge working on vacuum. That being said, I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their evening, morning, or afternoon, whatever part of the day you're watching this, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.